Interesting activity has begun among NATO countries, which indicates that a major war either has already started or is very close. More and more countries are secretly shifting their economies to a wartime footing. The United States of America was the first to do this. Donald Trump's administration appealed to Congress with a request for a sharp increase in the military budget to pay for weapons purchases, army modernization, and the war in Iran. The White House's request for the Pentagon's budget for 2027 is $1.5 trillion, which is 1.5 times more than the current year, or about $500 billion more. France has decided to significantly increase the production of drones and bombs and to switch to a so-called wartime economy. In particular, the French authorities have prepared a draft of an updated military planning law, and the European Union has started to respond. There are programs that effectively convert a number of factories, civilian factories, to the production of weapons and ammunition. Meanwhile, in the Middle East, the war is only escalating, and it is already clear that the US is gradually moving toward a ground invasion. And the UN Secretary General, in case you missed it, has warned that the world is facing a global war. My name is Pechiy. Let's discuss this topic together, but before we start this episode, I ask for your support. Support the work of this YouTube channel with your donation, subscription, or sponsorship. In general, if you consider the work of our channel important, interesting, and necessary, you can support the channel financially. All the links and details on how to do this are in the description of this video, where it says support the channel. Pechiy. Choose any format that is convenient for you. I will be grateful for any support. And subscribe to the Telegram channel Pechiy News, the link is also in the description. So, more and more countries are preparing for a big war. Let me remind you, the United Kingdom recently convened talks with 35 countries to form a coalition to ensure the security of shipping in the Hormuz Strait after the cessation of hostilities. At the meeting of foreign ministers, they discussed specific measures, in particular escorting commercial ships with military vessels, demining the strait, and protection against possible attacks from Iran. At the same time, the militaries of all these countries are preparing to take responsibility, but that's just what's on the surface, as they say. And that's what you definitely could have heard. But behind the scenes, something more is happening. Well, for example, Donald Trump's administration today appealed to Congress with a request for a sharp increase in the military budget to pay for weapons purchases, army modernization, and that very war in Iran. The White House's request for the Pentagon's 2027 budget is $1.5 trillion. That is, compared to the current year, this budget increases by $500 billion. And now the director of the White House Office of Management and Budget, Russell Wode, stated, quote, President Trump promised to renew investment in America's national security infrastructure and make our country safe again in a dangerous world. The 2027 budget fulfills this promise and ensures that the U.S. will maintain the most powerful military in the world. As a result of the increase, U.S. military spending, already the highest in the world, will reach 4.5% of GDP, and their growth by 1.5 times in a year will be simply unprecedented since the Korean War in the early 1950s. And this is already raising concerns that the U.S. is preparing for some kind of major war. Even during the time of Ronald Reagan, at the height of the Cold War, when the US launched the Star Wars program and deployed its nuclear missiles in Europe, the increase in the military budget was not so rapid. Because back then, in 1981, the military budget was increased by 25% and in 1982 by 20%. Trump says, no, let's increase it by 1.5 times right away. Right now it's $1 trillion, by 2027 it will be $1.5 trillion bucks. Hundreds of billions of dollars in new funding for the Pentagon are needed to form Trump's defense programs, including the Golden Dome missile defense system. And in addition, there's also the Navy modernization project called the Golden Fleet. Don't be surprised, with Trump, everything is golden. So, the first project, Golden Dome, is estimated at $175 billion, and the second involves building 25 new Trump-class warships. Well, yes. They will be equipped with lasers, hypersonic missiles, and will be capable of carrying nuclear weapons. In addition, the Pentagon plans to increase purchases of F-35 fighter jets, meaning 47 will be purchased this year and 85 next year. to increase spending on armaments from $205 to $260 billion, as well as investments in research and development. If it's $179 billion now, then by 2027 they want to allocate $220 billion for research and development. In January, Trump promised that the new money for the military would come from duties and tariffs imposed on countries that, as he put it, had robbed America in the past. So he was saying that he would make money from tariffs and use all of it, so to speak, for his defense programs. Now, as Bloomberg notes, the White House also plans a 10% cut in non-military budget items. And it notes a reduction of $15 billion in subsidies for the development of green energy. So in fact, Trump is starting to cut other sectors of the budget, for example, social programs. He says, medical insurance is of course great, but we're going to take that money and send it to war. That's it. We're canceling green energy and sending it to war. Although he promised that he would finance it with his tariffs. Well, it didn't work out. At the same time, France also decided to increase the production of drones several-fold, and bombs, and to switch to a wartime economy. Now, this is a really interesting story. The French authorities have prepared a draft of the updated military planning law, according to which by 2030 the country will multiply the production of drones, aerial bombs, and missiles. The draft proposes an immediate 400% increase in the stockpiles of loitering munitions such as kamikaze drones. The number of air-dropped guided bombs, AASM, and Hammer will increase by 240%, and by 30% for Aster and Mica missiles. The plan, with a funding volume of 8.5 billion euros, will be officially presented on April 8, and here is what is stated in the document, quote, "These measures are being implemented in order to prepare for a wartime economy. These efforts are reflected in the increase in the number of orders and deliveries of weapons, as well as in adaptation. Also of industrial infrastructure through co-financing of priority production capacities." Earlier, the deputy commander of the French Air Force, General Dominique Tardif, stated that the country is adopting Ukraine's experience in warfare, especially in terms of developing capabilities. One of the priorities the general mentioned was preparing the French Air Force for a potential Russian attack on NATO, which had previously been specifically warned about by the Chief of Staff. And now I will quote General Dominique Tardif. "It is possible that Russia will test NATO's strength between 2028 and 2029. Moscow is rapidly developing technologically, modernizing its Shahed-type drones, missiles, and combat aviation sensors. Since they are directing a significant portion of their national wealth into the defense industry, their design organizations are naturally able to make major advances. Well, in addition to missiles and drones, the need for a large quantity of which was demonstrated by the US and Israel's war against Iran, France has included the possibility of developing a new tank in its new plan. According to the draft bill, Paris will begin research to determine what kind of combat vehicle could replace the current flagship French tank Leclerc. The drafted bill covers a lot. It's a multi-year financial program that sets targets for the procurement and development of weapons. And so, already in 2027, defense spending amounts to 63.3 billion euros. At the same time, the European Commission officially approved a work program called EDIP. This is the first instrument in the history of the European Union aimed not just at procurement, but at radically expanding production capacity within Europe. More than 700 million euros have been allocated for the urgent increase in the production of missiles, ammunition, and anti-drone systems. I want to point out right away that this is not 700 million to buy these missiles, but specifically for expanding production. It's important to understand that. The European Union is also introducing the principle of giving preference to European suppliers, encouraging companies to purchase components specifically within the European Union to eliminate dependence on the US and Asia. And the point is that such automotive giants as Volkswagen or Renault are already converting their production lines for weapons manufacturing. The European Union isn't just ready to allocate money for this, it already is. In addition, according to reports from April 3rd, EU countries are discussing granting a loan, a huge loan of nearly 100 billion euros for defense needs, for the next 2 years. And this money will be used specifically to purchase European weapons. Additionally, in Europe, the Brave Tech program has been launched to integrate military startups directly into the production chains of major corporations like Rheinmetall. So as you can see, Europe is really shifting to what's called a wartime economy. And all of this is connected to what's happening in the Middle East. And finally, let me remind you of what I mentioned at the beginning. The UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres said yesterday that the world is approaching a major global war. So, clearly nothing is ending in the Middle East, everything is just beginning. And Europe and the US are clearly preparing for something. I'll leave it at that. Share your opinions and conclusions in the comments below this episode. Subscribe to the channel, it's very important. Click the bell and don't forget to like. If you found the information useful and interesting, you can support the work of this YouTube channel. You can donate, for example, using the QR code on your screen or the links in the description of this video. That's all for now. Take care of yourselves. Goodbye, everyone.